Ready?
Oh, wow.
Get that a little closer.
Huh?
Get that a little closer. There you go.
What's this?
Don't be
I don't want it
afraid.
too close.
No,
These things are directional. It'll hear me.
So anyway, I've done it. We were talking offline. I've done a number of these so far, and I have had people come on for kind of different reasons. Some people are someone that I've learned from. Some of them are just friends of mine. I was thinking about it today. I'm like, what is the real connection here? And it occurred to me.
Don't say college.
No. But somewhat it's because of college.
It is because of college.
So back in 2017, I was at Stagecoach. I was going to the airport, or I was getting ready to go to the airport, and one of the guys was like, hey, do you mind if this woman rides with you to the airport? Yeah, no problem. Well, it turns out
Stagecoach is like the country version of Coachella.
Exactly.
Okay, got it.
Right? So I'm out at Madison Club staying with JJ and those guys. And I'm talking to this woman on the way to the airport. And she's like, oh, you're from Austin. My doctor is about to go do some work with Lance Armstrong, Dr. Conover.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, well, what are they going to be doing? Well, it's this NAD plus and this fast vitamin and da-da-da-da. I was like, all right, well, I kind of know Lance, but I know college. So I'm going to find out what the hell is going on, because if this is a thing, then I want to do it.
If this is a thing.
So anyway, I connect with college.
By the way, who was the woman?
I'm forgetting her name.
Okay. Was it Jeannie Anlinger?
No.
Older? How old?
No. A little bit older than us. Maybe in her mid-50s.
Anyways.
Nevertheless, the linchpin here is that through these, the NAD IV therapies we did, we ended up eventually going to On It and doing it.
Yep.
And that's where I met Kyle Kingsbury, who's a friend of ours. And it was around that time, you remember, I came back from Las Vegas. I was at the shooting when we were all at On It. And that for me really sparked this awareness, this like, why the fuck am I here? I've kind of done all the things I thought I was supposed to do, and I was pretty unfulfilled. And so, you know, through this NAD therapy, meeting Kyle, it kind of blew everything up, because I've started to kind of go down this path of self-discovery, right? And so anyway, that's where the podcast came from. But anyway, that's our connection here.
That makes perfect sense.
But I want you, I mean, people know who you are. You know, I'm interested in finding out a little bit. I want people to know kind of the more human side, the dad side, the partner side, what you're doing today.
Yep.
Can you just give us a little background? I mean, you grew up in endurance sports. Tell us kind of how that shaped your life.
Yeah.
And kind of take us from there.
By the way, before I get into that, I was just in Vegas for CES. And of course, we made plans at the last minute. Hotel rooms are impossible to get. So we ended up getting rooms at the Mandalay Bay, which I just, you know, to me, I don't like Vegas. So, you know, you could say Mandalay Bay or Mandalay J. I don't know the difference. So, but when I pulled up, I was like, oh my God, like it was freaky.
How so?
Well, just, I mean, the particular room that I was in looked down. I mean, obviously, whatever room this lunatic was in is you know, probably full of concrete now.
Yeah.
But the room I was in looked down on that part.
No shit.
Just like, I'm sure, and I was just like, oh, dude, I kept the blind shut. I was like, get me out of Vegas, anyways, just because I'm not a big fan. But yeah, it was. And the rooms were like. That poor place, and the rooms were like $100 a night. Like I think it's a stigma. I
mean, obviously I think they took a big hit on a lawsuit, and I know they've got their insurance and stuff like that. But I don't know what else they could have done. I mean, I haven't really looked at it. I mean, if you want, unfortunately, if that's something that is you want to, manifest, it can happen.
For sure.
Anyway,
so that has nothing to do with me and endurance. No, I grew up in Plano, Texas. I was born in downtown Dallas to a 17-year-old lady that didn't have an athletic bone in her body, but she was the baddest mofo around. I mean, that time in 1971, I was born in a part of Dallas called Oak Cliff. I mean, Oak Cliff we were the only white people there. I mean, it was. Now Oak Cliff is, if you go to Dallas or if you're a young, successful person and you live in Oak Cliff, I mean, that's like living in Clarksville or downtown Austin or even East Austin. That's like the hip.
No shit.
But in 71, man, it was the skids.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was born in Methodist Hospital and just kind of kicked around the crazy thing that I think some people know, but not everybody knows. So I wasn't born Lance Armstrong. I was born, my birth father, who I never met, was a guy by the name of Eddie Gunderson. So I was Lance Gunderson for 3 or 4 years. Then my mom remarried. Well, not remarried. She never married Eddie Gunderson. And so she married Terry Armstrong. She became Linda Armstrong. I then became Lance Armstrong. And then, man, I just kind of weaved our way through the suburbs of Dallas, first in Garland, then in Richardson, and then ultimately in Plano, where I spent most of my formative years. And as a kid, just going through all sports like all kids do. I mean, my kids do it. Your kids probably do it.
Yeah.
Let's put them in the basketball league. Let's put them, on the baseball team and on the flag football and blah, blah, blah. And, maybe you throw them on the summer swim team. Mm-hmm. Maybe. I didn't do the summer swim team, so I did all the other sports and just sucked. It was embarrassing. Like I was just not a ball guy. Hand-eye coordination, terrible. I mean, you played golf.
Yeah, it's not pretty.
It's an ugly thing. So I still love it. And I just finally on my own, I just said, this sucks. Like I'm not good. Like I'm not, if there was an A and a B team, I'm on the B team.
Yeah.
And in my mind, I'm like, I don't like being on the B team. So I completely pivoted, quit all of those sports and joined the swim team as a 12-year-old, which is late to start swimming.
Mm-hmm.
Kids start.
Certainly today, fuck.
Yeah. I mean, you want to be and this was not, there's 2 types of kids swim programs. There's the sort of country club summer swim program, which maybe your kids do. It's what my kids do. And then there's what they call age group swimming, which is what produces, Michael Phelps and all these people. That's like real year-round swimming. So I joined that program as a 12-year-old, and I had some friends on the team. Of course, they were swimming with all the other 12-year-olds. Well, coach threw me in with the 6-year-olds because I didn't know how to swim. Mm. And so the way it worked is, if you can imagine a 6 to 8 lane pool, one lane was the 6-year-olds, the next lane was the 7s. But I jumped in as a 12-year-old with 6-year-olds. And
to be fair, if I jumped in right now, I would be jumping in with the 6-year-olds.
You'd be jumping, and they'd swim over the top of you.
Yeah.
But it's where the coach, like, they do this assessment, and that's where they put me. And I, for the life of me, I have no idea why I stayed. I mean, I don't remember being embarrassed or humiliated. I don't know what I was thinking, but I was like, but man, within a month, boom, laying over some of the 7-year-olds. Another month, boom, laying over 8-year-olds. And I just worked my way all the way up until when I was 15, I was, or not 14, I was top 3 in the state in the mile. And all the while, at the same time, running track and cross country in high school.
How'd you get into that?
I just was always
a natural progression.
I don't know. My mom she'd occasionally go do some 10Ks in Dallas. And so I'd, go do some of them with her, not training for them, just go do them. So but I was a good runner. I mean, I won the Plano, this is a really proud moment. Plano, what was it? The Plano City Championships. I won the 12, they didn't have the mile in middle school. They had the 1200. And I'll never forget, I went to Armstrong Middle School, and back then we had timers, and the timer's like, what's your name, son? I said, Armstrong. I said, what's your name? I said, Armstrong. He said, I'm not what school, what's your name? I said, No, I'm Armstrong from Armstrong. It was fucked up. But yeah, and then, so then I had the 2/3 of the sport of a triathlon. And then I was like, I should try this triathlon, find a bike. I'll try the triathlon. So then I actually signed up for a kids triathlon called Iron Kids, won the events in Texas, went to the national championships in Orlando, got beat, got second. To a kid who ended up becoming a great running. He ran track and cross country at Notre Dame, became a professional triathlete. He was a stud. And then I was just on my way. And then I turned pro and tri when I was 15, like on a whim. I was like, there was the biggest at that time. So I was 15, I was 19. It would have been the 1987 President's Triathlon in Las Colinas. It was the biggest triathlon in the world. Like 5,000 participants. And I said, fuck it. I'll race with these guys. So I got my pro license, and I knew I could swim. I came out of the water with the leaders, stayed on the bike with the leaders, and then got smoked a little bit on the run. But, but that was it, man. After that, I was off.
And then how long did you do that competitively until you just started to focus on cycling?
Not that long. It felt like a long time, like anything in life. When you look back 30 years, like, well, that was a long time. But it was over this. I transitioned to cycling exclusively probably 3 or 4 years later. So when I was 18 or 19.
What was the thing the
Olympics
that triggered that?
Yeah,
for you?
I wanted more than anything to go to the Olympics.
And that was the way to do it.
So this is in 1990, 89, 90. Believe it or not, triathlon wasn't an Olympic sport until 2000. So this is in 90, and I'm looking around going, these guys aren't getting in. I want to go to the Olympics because as a kid, that's like the cool thing. You want to go to the Olympics. So I switched to cycling and then went to the Barcelona games in 92. And then it was truly history. I mean, there was no, although I did go back and do some tries in 2011, 2012, but yeah, all about the Olympic dream.
So tell me this. I've often thought about cycling as an individual sport, and I think there's an element to that. Certainly as you're growing up in the sport, it's very much you against the field. And then as you go into, more competitive, you get onto a team, it becomes a team sport. But how does that work? Like, kind of walk us through a little bit of like the individual piece, and then you come onto a team. What is that transition like? Because you're used to you against the world. I'm imagining, right? There's a different mentality, and then it's like, oh, I'm part of a team.
Yeah. And
then your first team you were a part of, what was your role?
Yeah, I mean, if you're the leader of the team, it feels like you're, it feels more like an individual sport. If you're, in cycling they call them domestiques. If you're number 6 or number 7 guy and you're a domestique, you feel like you're a worker.
You're just a lineman.
Yeah, and so
have you always been the leader of the team, or
almost right away? I mean, when I was switched and got onto my first real cycling team, I had, what they would call protected status, where you're looked after in the race and you're not asked or meant to be doing any work at the front, trying to control the race or bring back a breakaway or go fetch bottles or raincoats when it starts raining. I mean, there were times you'd do some of that, but I never did that much. And not because I came on the team and I said, fuck y'all, I'm gonna be the leader. I mean, cycling is very strict and traditional, and the what they call the director sportif, the coach of the team, he dictates all that. So, before races, team meetings, they'll be like, these are our protected guys, and this is, you other 7 guys, these are your jobs.
And your numbers were good enough that just put you into that status.
And results. I mean, back then there weren't, this is in the late 80s, early 90s, there were no numbers. I mean, where there was no, we were just starting to have heart rate monitors.
Damn.
Yeah. And then, now, of course, everything's power-based and none of that. Absolutely. I guess you could have gone into a lab, but the results were the numbers.
Okay. And so what did you feel like was the biggest challenge of being part of a team sport, going from an individual where, again, like I can imagine that mentality is like, everyone's out to get me because I'm trying to fucking win the race.
Right. But I actually liked that part. Like I just even though I wasn't good at team sports, I loved team sports. So growing up in Dallas, I mean, the Cowboys were I don't even know what happened to this organization, but back then the Cowboys were America's team, truly, and they were a team, and the team had in the two different versions of the Cowboys going back to the Staubach days and Hollywood Henderson and Drew Pearson, all that, Tony Dorsett, and then you had the next wave, which was Aikman and Emmett and Novacek and on and on and on, the Moose, Ken Norton. Anyway, so I always liked watching that, and even though I was not good at football, I could appreciate what it was like to be on a team. So I liked that part. I liked, and that carried through all the way until the end of my career, when it was, I loved the team part of it, just sort of that rah and just the behind the scenes, not the shit that everybody saw on TV, because that's where you got to kind of behave, but at the dining table or in the bus, in team meetings, just trash talking, just shit that guys do on teams. Like I loved that part of it. That part was easy for me to beam up on.
So that was just a nice, kind of a nice transition for you to come into that space. And I have been around you enough to know that you're pretty good at the shit talking.
Yeah.
Piece. So
no, I like that.
Honed it with the fellas.
And I can take it. Like I don't mind. I hate that one. And I think most people probably have the perception that I wouldn't like to be on the receiving end, but I don't mind. You've been around enough to know whatever. Yeah. I don't care what you say to me. I mean, that's but that back and forth and that banter and I like that.
All right. Well, let's transition. We'll come back to some of that stuff later on, but let's talk about what you're doing. Actually, today you're back in Austin.
And for a couple of days.
What's that? You're golfing?
No, I'm here for a couple of days. I go back.
Right. You're here for a couple of days and you're with Next Ventures.
Yeah. So I really, man, there's two parts to my life now. Well, there's, if you factor in 5 kids and a normal life, family life, that's sort of first and foremost. But then on the business side, there's really 2 parts to my life, and those 2 parts, fortunately, have ended up really completing this amazing flywheel. And so the first part is just like we're doing now. I mean, creating content through podcasts. I'm not as religious as I used to be with the Forward, which was my original show, which was an interview style show, just like this, just mano a mano.
And what was the inspiration for that? Why did you decide to go into that?
My manager he been with me forever and stuck with me through thick and thin. And he had been on me for years. He's like, dude, you have all of these interesting friends.
Dude, your fucking guest list is something
and he's
else.
like, all these people that every time they see you, like, dude, what can I do to help? Like, let's just get some of this gear and just talk to them, interview them. I was like, I don't do that. But then finally one day I was like, all right, fuck it, let's do it. And so we just started, and we used the name Forward. It's really a metaphor for my life, and something that I've had to live by it, man. I've had to just
move forward.
Yeah, and then my situation and situations, like it's plenty of people would have just not moved forward. They would have just stopped or laid down, and I was always just like, fuck that, man. I'm moving forward. This is not good. This is not ideal. But I'll be damned if I'm going to curl up and start crying here. Like I cried plenty, but I'm moving forward. And so we used that name, which became a brand. Started creating content there. The interesting thing about that show for years, because I was so fucking bitter at the sport of cycling, is I refused to talk about cycling.
You never had any until eventually. I think you had like 3 of your teammates on.
That's the only show on the Forward that ever addressed cycling, was when I had those 3. I had Christian, George, and Dylan on. And that but that was also at a moment in my life where I was starting to lean back into cycling and ride more. I got hurt running, so I got back on the bike. But it was weird, man. There were years, not only would I not talk about cycling on my podcast, but I own a bike shop in Austin, Texas. Yeah. You can talk to the staff. I refused to go into my bike shop for years. because I had this bitterness and anger towards the sport, and right or wrong. I mean, some's right, some's wrong. Who knows? But I got over it.
Well, let's talk about that, because I was talking to a friend of mine last night who he recently left a place that he was working for a long time and felt like those people were family to him.
Mm-hmm.
And in him leaving, the way things, the way everything got settled, it was very hard for him. And he has a lot of bitterness, and he still has 3 years of kind of dealing with this payout where he has to kind of confront this relationship and this fractured relationship. And, you know, for him, even though there's the bitterness, it's an opportunity for him to work through that, because it's on him. Mm-hmm. He's the one who's got to deal with that shit. Mm-hmm. Like, it's like the classic drinking poison and wanting someone else to feel the effects. Right. Mm-hmm. And so for you, I'm curious, like,
he was asked to leave.
They mutually, the ship was kind of sinking, and he's like, I'm moving on and doing my own thing.
Yeah.
And they, you know, arguably tried to fuck him in the end. And he had a good lawyer who's a good buddy of mine, and ended up doing, you know, getting what he felt like he deserved. Nevertheless, it's been very uncomfortable for him. And so I'm curious, because when you're fighting that, it's an internal thing. And so what was the thing for you that allowed you to let go of that? Because correct me if I'm wrong, but when you're holding on to that, it fucking sucks. And when you let go of it, you're like, oh, why didn't I do this a month ago or 6 months ago? Or what was your experience?
That's not fair. I mean, my experience was very basic. I mean, it literally came down to the question, Lance, do you love riding a bike? Like, just putting your stuff on, clipping in, and going for a bike ride. Like, do you love that? Like, when you're out there, are you in a special place? Are you in a place where you are talking to yourself, thinking to yourself, thinking about everything, right? And the reality is, the only place that I could ever get my head and my mind into that, which I view as a very healthy place, a very constructive place, a place of really, honestly, just deep, deep therapy. The only exercise ever in my life that could do that is a bike. I could go for a 3-hour run, and I would never, not even remotely, get to that place. 3-hour runs, you could do a lot of stuff in 3 hours. Yeah. But for whatever reason, it's the bike where I can truly work on myself, work on my life, work on my plans, and so I just fell back in love with it. I mean, as corny as it sounds,
that's a flow state for you.
Yeah.
It allows everything to fall away.
And so that's what happened. And when that happened, then I started going back to my shop. No, but then and then on a whim, and this is what kind of blew up, to answer your question, this is what made this flywheel actually work. I was like, all right, I don't ever talk about it. Fuck it. I'm going to do a cycling show. I'm going to do a daily Tour de France recap show. And I was like, I don't know how this is going to go over, but I'm going to come at it from just the rawest, most transparent, honest perspective that I know. And so I recruited a buddy here in town to come and co-host it with me, just to keep the show flowing. We first did that show, Tour de France 2017, so July of 17. Overnight, it was top 3 on iTunes. It was, that show in 3 weeks did 6 million downloads. I mean, it was just, I was like, wow, that wasn't a bad idea. And we've just continued to crank that thing out. Actually expanded that show to cover other cycling shows. I've given shows to my old coach, my old sports director, Johan Bernil does a show. He also does a show in Spanish. So that show's now about 100 shows a year.
No shit.
And then, so just imagine that on this side of my life is this, just call it content. Mm-hmm. As overnight, like as soon as that show did 6 million downloads in 2017, the deal flow started. So just getting great looks at great opportunities from great entrepreneurs, great ideas, and asking all kinds of questions, just all over the place. Would you try our gear or our stuff? Can we advertise? Would you invest? Would you advise? And it was like a switch went off. I mean, it happened that quickly. And I really credit the reach of the show for that. But also I think just maybe giving, because a year before they weren't calling me to look at all their stuff. But I think the success of the show gave them cover. It's like, okay, well, somebody's leaned back into this guy. He's got a top show on iTunes. He's doing millions of downloads. By the way, year one, we couldn't get an advertiser to save our lives.
No shit.
Yeah, I funded everything. There was not one advertiser. That changed in year two and subsequent years. But yeah, just all bootstrapped.
What's so interesting, you start this thing, 2017, and you just never anticipate what's going to happen downstream.
No.
Here you are, and we'll talk about next ventures in a minute here, but here you are on this completely different path than I think you would have ever thought you were on in 2017.
Right.
And it's all because you want to do something that was fucking fun. It's right in your wheelhouse.
Right. Oh, it's so easy.
So easy.
It's embarrassing how easy it is. I mean, I should not get paid for it, but now it's expanded. Now we make it even funner with George on the show, and it's still, so now it's JB still, but I added my old, the only guy that did all 7 tours with me, George Hincapie, who's a great foil. We've got this whole thing figured out. He's the nice guy, the one that everybody likes. I'm the angry, cranky,
you are?
Yeah, the curmudgeon asshole.
No shit.
That just rags on people, and he's over there being nice. I'm like, you're such a wuss. Like, you're so lame. I mean, it's and so it's just, man, it's working.
What I love what you just said. And it's actually in the book I just gave you, the Lion Tracker's Guide to Life. But it's so easy. I can't believe I get paid. Like, I think so many of us think that something has to be hard
to make money. Yeah,
to make money, for it to be purposeful. And generally, like, our greatest gifts are the things that create all these opportunities. And you just went to your gift of gab and in your, obviously, your history in cycling.
Yeah. And
you've been doing the podcast. You're like, fuck it, let's just throw these 3 things together.
Yeah. And
all of a sudden, we have next ventures. And so let's talk about that.
Well, so then, and I want to talk about how we make money too, because I think how we make money, and not to make this show about making money, but it does make money now on the content side. But I think a unique view on how to make money in and around content with advertising.
Okay.
But so the deal flow starts, and I'm watching this, and when we were doing NAD over there at Onnit, even Aubrey to a degree, I think, has this, but Tim Ferriss was there.
Yes.
So I've seen all these guys. I've seen Gary Vee do it. I've seen Saka do it. Ferriss, et cetera. They have built an audience. They get deal flow. Most of them, if not all of them, are just individually. They're investing in those deals personally. And then Ferriss probably does it more than most, but then he reintegrates some of his investments back into his content. They'll either advertise or he'll talk about it or something. But my point was, like, what would happen with this flywheel if we created the fund? So we've raised this $75 million fund to invest in health and wellness, performance optimization. And then what happens when and all the while being completely honest with the audience, when we weave this stuff back into the content, which is what we've done. We first did in summer of 2018, and then we did last summer of 2019, which it's remarkable, and I think that actually gets me to this place of the audience, my audience. So now that show does the cycling show that I'd never wanted to do, is about 15 million downloads a year. And so, but it is the best. Like, if I had 15 million 10 years ago, I probably had 50 million, right? In terms of an audience. The world shrunk, but those 15 that have come back, I'd never trade the 15 for the 50. Because the 50 was that was it was trendy, it was hot, it was obvious, it was these 15, every single one of those downloads, and I believe this to be true, every single download has had to have a conversation with themselves. Like, do I do it? Do I, however, when you go to whatever you do, hit play or download or subscribe, they've all had to say, do I go back? And so once they say, and some people say no, fair enough. But once they say yes, they're on the team. Now I've said some things where people leave the team, but
fair.
That's fine.
You got to be you.
So they can leave. That's okay. I try not. I mean, if I talk about Trump or something, they leave. But but I'm not going to stop doing that. But the other great thing is once they say yes, if there's ever a bogey, man, they're so interactive, which is just amazing. It's like, we really didn't like that. They're very interactive. So it's been great. But the one thing about just to bring it full circle and how we monetize the show, because we take ads from people that we've invested in it next. I'm completely honest about it. I say, look, I love this product. I love it so much. We've made an investment. I said, I don't know if that's a disclaimer or an endorsement, but I just want you all to know. But the thing about all of the other advertisers, and this is the commitment, and I say it out loud, this is the commitment I've made to the audience, is you're never going to get, if I read an ad on this show, you're going to get it. Okay. It's not going to be Dollar Shave Club or MeUndies or LegalZoom or ZipRecruiter, all this, those are all fine businesses. And then they invest heavily in the podcast space. But these 15 million people don't want to hear me talk about ZipRecruiter.
No.
They want to hear me. They like it when I talk about my investments. They actually love it. But if I talk about, the feed out of Boulder, Colorado, we have nothing to do with that business. Or Roca sunglasses, or high brew coffee, or these are all things that and this is my commitment. Like, look, you're never going to hear me talking about underwear. Like, this is shit that's going to be in line with what I believe in and what you all believe in. You're going to get it. Like, we don't need the money that bad. So I've tried to keep it just super core, super authentic, and on point with this audience. And I think two things. I think if I started talking about underwear, I think they'd leave. Mm-hmm. And if every single one of my advertisers were investments we've made, they'd leave. Mm-hmm. They'd say, you know what?
It's a different type of alignment.
I get it now. Okay, we all came back. He's got this fund. He's invested. We're all buying his stuff. We're out. So I have to be I keep them very separate. I have to be very sensitive. I'm super sensitive to those 15 million people. And so far, so good.
I love that. And I love, I've obviously been kind of figuring out as I go forward in this space, what does that look like? And, do I take on sponsors at some point? And if I do, what does that look like? And it's very much what you've said. It's these things that I personally use that I'm aligned with their mission and what they're doing and how they're improving.
Yeah. So here's the goal. At least in the way my dumbass mind works, if I would have to read the ad, I shouldn't take it.
I like that.
If I can just, and again, companies that we have nothing to do with, we have no skin in the game, we just like them. And then, yes, they pay us to be. You should just talk about it. Yeah. And read is 30 seconds. You talk about a product, it's 2 minutes. But it's and you involve your other people on the show. Like, holy shit, George, have you tried this new double high brew coffee, this tall can, the double shot? I'm like, holy fuck, I feel good. Just go like that. It shouldn't be like, yes, and we are high brew coffee from Austin, Texas, cold brewed for those who do. Like, that's lame.
Yeah.
So if I ever have to read an ad, that's an ad I shouldn't take. Now, bullet points. So I think it's fair for these companies, and there may be a buy code, there may be an offering they have or a release, whatever. Bullet points, fine, but you should just riff on it.
Yeah, you got to be discerning about. Like, there are some things that they really want you to present. With that in mind, a buddy of mine asked me to ask you this: do you ever ride the Peloton?
No, hell no.
Why not,
man?
Have you ever ridden on one?
No. So I'm going to answer. I'm going to answer your.
I love my Peloton, so just be gentle.
So I'm going to give you. I'm going to tell you a story that will answer your question.
It's not going to make me give away my Peloton.
I don't know. You can do whatever you want. I mean, if you're afraid of cars, I get it. But I'm afraid of cars too now. All these idiots driving around. But this is not going to sound like I'm answering the question, but this will answer the question.
Okay.
So I got a buddy. I love art. I collect a ton of art. I love jamming on art, looking at art, meeting artists. It's kind of a secret obsession.
So sophisticated.
Yeah, right. It's not. Believe me, it's not that sophisticated. I mean, I like art of boobies and asses and everything. So it's street art. I mean, my original source of my own inspiration was street art, which is now sort of, this world has evolved and has become fine art. But I use a guy in LA to kind of help me source art and look through stuff and bring stuff to me. His name's Danny Comden. And my favorite artist of all time is Ed Ruscha, who's probably America's most important living contemporary artist. I love Ed, love him personally. I've had him on my show, collect a bunch of his art. And Ed's getting up there. I mean, you don't just get to go to Ed's studio. And I'll leave out certain names. But so Danny took a guy that he and I both know to visit Ed. And I got so mad. I said, "Are you fucking kidding me? You took him to see Ed? Like that is you don't just go see and hang out at Ed Ruscha's studio. Like this like I said, I mean, I can't say it any stronger. It's probably America's most important living contemporary artist." I was like, why? And Danny, he's like a valley boy. He goes, dude, he's an indoor kitty. You're an outdoor kitty.
Got it.
And this guy's was truly an indoor kitty, and I'm just an outdoor kitty, man. If I'm gonna put on bike shorts, bike shoes, ride a bike, it is going to be outside. I refuse to ride a bike inside.
Perfect.
And if it's bad weather or you're in a place where you don't have a bike, then go run.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't. So I know you love it. I'm personally short the business. I think this isn't a business podcast, but I just think there's no moat around that business. I think there's going to be a ton of competitors. And, do you remember Jazzercise?
Yeah.
Do you remember the step? I mean, and that's not being critical of Peloton. It's just people.
They've got a huge footprint though.
Yeah. Well, they better get busy on, if I'm advising Peloton, the treadmill, I think, was a logical next step. I think they're playing with because there's all of these other concepts in and around subscription and content, right? So the hot instructor, giving you the motivating class. But I'm sure they're doing this, but they better be working on a full body solution, just like Mirror or Tonal or Form Life. They better be working on a rowing solution like this super sexy rowing machine. I don't know if you've seen it. God dang it, I'm spacing on the name. But that's the only way. They can't just keep pumping out cycling classes.
Sure. Okay.
Do you watch the classes?
Yeah.
Okay, that's cute.
Most of the time, I'll put my own music in and I'll put the closed caption on so I'll know kind of where I'm supposed to be. But yeah, or I'll listen to a podcast or something like that. So
the music part's been a big problem for them. I mean, they
really.
Yeah, they didn't get, as the business was going like this, when it was down here, they're probably playing, I mean, all the stuff I see around here, Cope and Guns N' Roses and Tupac and Black Keys and Beastie Boys, they're playing all that stuff.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden the shit starts going like this. And these licensing companies go, wait a second. Because if you play that music on a radio station or at a club or whatever, technically you're supposed that you pay for that. You
pay a royalty, that's right.
And so they got behind on that. Which anyways, I mean, look, it's a $1 billion business, which is pretty awesome. But
okay, let's shift gears again. Let's get back to Next Ventures.
Okay.
We'll talk about we reconnected recently about I'm spacing on it right now.
PowerDot, Amp Human.
Yeah, on Amp Human.
Yep.
That's right. Talk about that a little bit and why you like it.
So I like it because it absolutely works.
It's called PR Lotion.
The company is called Amp Human. They're based in Park City, started by a guy named Jeff Byers and his partner Erica Good. From the get-go, I like it because I met Jeff Byers. And if Jeff Byers was selling gongs, you'd buy it. Like you meet, when you meet a person,
I spoke with him on the phone after
you're just
you
going to will
us.
it to happen.
Yeah,
this is a dude. He was an 320-pound lineman at USC.
Shit.
Yeah, this is a crazy story. He's team captain, played in the national championships against the University of Texas, which they fortunately lost. Then went and played in the league, got hurt, went back to business school, and then when he was in business school, he's like, it's 300 plus, right? If 300-pound linemen either go to 400 or to 200, they don't stay at 300. So he starts running and swimming and riding. He's now like a 220-pound, 230-pound triathlete. But you just meet the dude and you're like, this guy's a winner. And so you have that. You have the people part, which we focus heavily on. We also focus on, our one of our main tenets or filters is like, if there were 10 people making sodium bicarbonate cream, we don't do that deal. But there isn't 10 people. There's only one person that can make that cream, and it's them because they have the worldwide exclusive rights for non-pharmaceutical transdermal absorption. So bicarbonate cream is just their first product. Like, let's just come out with that. It's done amazingly well. As we put it into the flywheel, it kills it. They're working on vitamin D. They've got a grant from the Department of Defense to test it in combat. They're working on glycogen. So with these patents, which is what makes them unique. So now we've got the person, the entrepreneur, the team.
You have to start there. I've fucked that up so many times in investments.
We have too.
Yeah.
I mean, full disclosure, we have too. I mean, you can totally fall in love with a technology, a product, a service, a drink, a bar, whatever. But if you've got, Yosemite Sam over here running the company, it doesn't work.
No.
And it's hard to replace them.
Yeah.
Or shift them. So now you've got Byers and his team. You've got the patent, which allows them to basically roll out an endless suite of products. And so that's why we did. But on the PR lotion, I mean, it absolutely works. I mean, both teams in the Super Bowl last year used it. Both teams in the Stanley Cup used it. The last two winners of the tour used it. When Kipchoge just ran 159, he used it over his entire body. The shit, when it was first given to me, I was like, stop it. This doesn't work. Kyle Kingsbury is no chump.
Dude, he slathers himself up.
Nobody pushes himself harder than Kyle King. He will not do anything without PR lotion. Mm-hmm. And so the fact that it absolutely works is just incredible. But then as a business and as an investment, the potential for them to just keep going. I mean, vitamin D, half of the world is deficient in vitamin D.
Yeah, and it's really hard, the absorption.
That's the whole problem. That's the problem with bicarbonate.
Yeah.
You can ingest it or inject it. If you ingest it, you got to take a ton and it rocks your stomach. Who's going to go inject it other than me back in the day? Watch your head over there. But no, it just takes the stomach out of the whole, takes the gut out.
Yeah.
So.
And especially with today's guts, I mean, our guts are so fucked up from the food supply that, to be able to bypass that, and then it becomes much more, I'm guessing, much more bioavailable because it is just coming right into the system. Awesome. Okay. Any other kind of cool companies or devices that you mentioned PowerDot?
PowerDot, we love PowerDot. It was the first company we invested in. It was the first. We did some personal investment there, my partner and I, and then made a larger investment from the fund at that previous valuation, which has made it really attractive for just the returns of the fund. But again, game-changing technology. If you grew up in sports, everybody's had either TENS or eStem but it's come in the form of going to the trainer's office or the chiropractor's office, and it's a big machine, and there's cables everywhere, and that machine costs them $5,000, and they charge you $150 every time you go. This is a $200 or $300. Depends if you do the one or two-headed one, but it's $200 to $300. It's the size of this book you just gave me. Throw in my backpack, take it on the road. I mean, it's a game changer. Download the app, Bluetooth enabled. I mean, it really. Unbelievable product. And once we put it back into the flywheel, it just crushed. I mean, that was when the light for me really went off. I'll just give you the number. So PowerDot in 2017 did $2 million in sales. We put them on the show for 3 weeks. So the tour is 3 weeks. So the 3 weeks of the tour in 2018, they did 600,000 in sales, 450 directly from our show. And then they did 5 million in 2018. Last year, they did about 8 or 9 million. So we just, the flywheel just, it works.
And so what's your specific, what are some of the roles that you play within Next Ventures?
Honestly, on PowerDot, I don't run point like like most venture funds. You have one of the associates or one of the managing partners is sort of the lead on it, and so my partner Lionel's the lead on PowerDot. But where I come in is if this is a real example. If I don't know if you know what Strava is.
Mm-hmm.
Strava's mapping, tracking, just your routes, your times against, and with a real social component. Huge. I think they're somewhere between 35 and 40 million active users on a daily basis. Fucking huge. It makes perfect sense that if you went for a 5-hour bike ride, that there should be some prompt like, hey, you should, to speed up recovery, here's your protocol for the PowerDot. And so it would have taken them, 6 weeks to get that meeting. But since, I've been with the Strava people forever and been a fanatical user for a long time. And so that's one phone call, right? So it's just like, hey, Eric, meet Mark, and Mark, meet Eric. And okay, good. When's the meeting? Tomorrow. Okay, great. Tomorrow.
Got it.
So awesome. It just cuts out a lot of the bullshit. A
lot of the friction.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay,
and I've been at the game for, this world of, I hate using words like high performance and performance and optimization because they sound so fast and cool and sexy. The reality is the person who gets last in the marathon, obviously the winner wants to be optimized. Mm-hmm. The person who got last, they too want to be optimized. They wanted it to be easier. They want to recover better. When they get back to work, they want better clarity, better focus. They want to be better teammates, family members, moms, dads, whatever. So, and everybody in between. So you have 40,000 people in the New York City Marathon. The way we look at it, and under the umbrella of optimization, everybody wants it. They all want it. Guys, gals, first place, last place, middle place, everybody wants it. And it's not going away.
No.
The stats will show you that whatever the fuck they're going to call this next generation, right? So, I don't know what we haven't named it yet,
no.
But they're there. They care more about their health and wellness than any previous generation ever in the history of the world. And so it's here to stay.
Mm. So I'm curious as you've moved on, obviously, from this career in cycling, what is it? Well, I got a couple questions. For one, when you decided to retire,
which time?
Well, finally.
Right.
When you finally did, and I'm up in Idaho with a bunch of these hockey guys who've retired, and so I get to kind of have up close and personal what it feels like for them, and it's
terrible.
It's challenging.
Terrible.
So kind of paint a picture for people. Like, what does it feel like? Even if you go out on a victory, right? You're still leaving behind a team. You're leaving behind. Like, what's that feel like?
It's a void. It's terrible. I've been in a couple weird ways. Not well. When I retired, because I retired the first time in 2005. And then I came back in 2009. That void, so to speak, was filled by Livestrong. So I just dove headfirst into Livestrong and just having fun with life. And so it didn't. I still came back, which I guess you could argue that there was some itch there that needed to be scratched. And then when I retired again in 2011, the shit hit the fan so hard that honestly, it filled the void. Like it was a terrible time, and it was ugly and expensive and embarrassing, but it was so busy and competitive and intense and stressful that it filled the void. Like it was, I can't imagine what it would have been like if I just retired again.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So I was having to, fight all these lawsuits, figure out who the fuck my friends were, get kicked out of Livestrong. So that was gone. But just battle. I was just battling. And so that went for 6 years. But it's hard, man. To your point of these hockey, it doesn't have to be hockey. It could be any guy.
No, that's what I'm just curious. Like it's, you leave a sport. I left trading. I know what that was like. That was a team for me. And when I left, though, I had something I wanted to do. I left kind of on my terms. I didn't leave on top. I didn't leave after the big, unbelievable year and like, see you later. It was like, oh, we had a couple shitty years. I'm like, it's over for me. I'm ready to move on. But everybody has their own experience with it.
Yeah, but it's different for athletes. You have to, I think it's safe to say and to consider that most of these guys didn't go to college. Most of them, if you're that good, you went from high school to being a pro athlete, basically.
Yeah.
And so, so all that to say, you don't have a degree to fall back on. Sorry about that.
You good?
And so that's taken out of it, right? So what are you going to, now you're 35, you might have some money saved up and you can't go get a job. I mean, maybe you can commentate, dude, I see it all the time. It's a problem.
And then for how long, at a certain age, you've been told what to do by a coach or a team up until that point when you retire. And then you're left to your own devices.
Yeah. And then their wife is telling them what to do.
And she's not used to having him around.
Right.
And he's trying to find his way in the family now in a new role.
Mm-hmm.
And she's not sure she wants him around because it was actually working really well when he had his thing to go to every day.
Dude, that's an epidemic.
Well, tell me this. What was it like when, in your situation was obviously a little bit different or a lot different. How hard was it for you to show up as dad when you were dealing with all that? Like how did you? I
mean, that was easy because I decided that, all right, okay, I see what's happening here. This is going to be a colossal meltdown. Like I'm going to lose $100 million. I'm going to lose half of my friends. I'm going to lose the organization that I spent 15 years building and raising $500 million to help 3 million other people. It's all gone. And so here's what I'm going to do. Right, I'm not going to lay down. I'm not going to curl up. I'm not going to, be a little baby about it. I'm going to keep moving forward, and I'm going to double down on my kids. I'm going to double down on my health and wellness. I'm going to double down on those half of my friends that didn't haul ass.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my move. It's just to just boom, lean straight. If I hugged my kids, the day before shit hit the fan, if it was on a scale of 1 to 10, if it was a 7, tomorrow I'm going to hug them a 14.
Mm-hmm.
Like just double everything on them. And so, and I didn't, I was eyes wide open, man. If it was going to a sporting event or a practice or a performance or whatever, or taking them to school, I didn't flinch. I didn't care.
Mm-hmm.
And to Austin's credit, man, they were great. There was very little, so not pushback, but there was very little. I think this city, the schools, the teachers, their peers, the counselors, everybody was really supportive of my kids.
Mm-hmm. And what would you want your kids to take away from your experience? What's what you went through, what you experienced, right? Whether it was your own doing or not, what is the life lesson, or are there life lessons packed in there for them?
I mean, there's a lot of life lessons. I mean, I think this idea around, the didn't go down the way it went down because I doped, right? It went down because I was ruthless and vile and mean and a bully. And, that just comes down to honesty and integrity. And that's all the shit. Like if you look at your kids, if you saw your kid out, if you could just boil it down and he was acting like Lance Armstrong of 2004, if he was doing that on the playground, you'd lose your mind.
Mm.
You'd be like, what? Get your ass over here. What are you? But I didn't have anybody to come over at the playground back then and tap me on the shoulder. I just was doing it on my own, being an idiot. And so, that idea around honesty, integrity, fairness, and I'm not even talking about doping a sport, because this is, when I say fairness, I'm not being like, let's all be fair in the race.
Sure.
No, fairness towards other people. Because there was no fair in bike racing. I don't care what anybody says. there was no such thing as fair.
Mm-hmm.
It was totally unfair. And it was the wild, wild west. And so we just were trying to manage that. I think people get that. I think people are like, okay, I got that. But you were really unfair to a lot of people, which is true. And so there's that. But then there's also just this lesson of like, my kids they're going to live a blessed life, but they're going to have times where, you might fail a class, you might lose a job, you might get divorced, you might get dumped or whatever, and so how do you respond and react and recover from that? Which is like, if I look at my jam, like that's the thing I'm the most proud of, if I can be proud of myself. I mean, it's just the fact that I'm sitting here, what's it been 8 years later, and if you just go through the phases of, he goes in hiding, he lays low, he doubles down on his kids and his health. He slowly starts to reemerge building content. Now, if you look at who'd have thought? Nobody would have thought that.
Fuck no.
Yeah. And so, and then, by the way, there was no plan. So the shit hits the fan, whatever, September, October of 2012. It wasn't like there was a summit January of 13. Like, okay, here's the steps, dude. We made this shit up as we went along. I just told you. Yeah. My manager bugging me to do a show because I've got interesting friends. Mm-hmm. Me going, no. And then going, okay, fuck it, let's do it. And then falling back in love with the bike, and then creating the second show. That audience blows up. The deal flow starts. The fun starts. Like, we just made it up.
Dude, it's like, it's a classic just going back. Like, when it's go back inward. And what is inside you? Well, inside you is getting on the bike. Inside you is your family and your friends that are there.
Yep.
And it's just starting there to the shit we know.
Yeah. And keeping it true to, even on the money, on the advertising side, just keeping it completely like, I just can't. First of all, I don't work for anybody. I mean, I guess I do in the sense that I work for my LPs, but I don't, they feel more like partners than my employer. But it's just keeping it authentic, keeping it core. And if there's ever a time where you gotta, because I did it, man. I had so many deals for so long, so many endorsements. You're like, am I really going to stand up and say this for a bunch of zeros at the end of the number? Like, fuck that. I ain't never going back to that. Mm-hmm. No way. So keep it real, as the kids say.
Yeah. Well, tell me, what does training look like for you today?
Fuck. Not good.
Like,
I have a bunch of problems. The biggest problem is that I primarily live in Aspen, and I'm not only am I an outdoor kitty, I'm an outdoor summer kitty.
Ooh.
So I hit up the gym. I'll do what they call skimo, so ski mountaineering, which is basically hiking up the mountain with a pair of skis on that are skinned, so they catch, and you just essentially hike up. And then at the top, take the skins off and you just ski down. I love doing that, but I'm not, if it's weird because so many people are so into skiing. But if you dumped 12 inches one day and was dark and cloudy, and the next day was bluebird day, and these people get so excited. They're like, dude, a bluebird powder day? Like they'd work a year for that one day. Mm-hmm. I'm like, no, I have no interest.
And it's hard, right?
The boots. It's all about the boots.
Well, I've dealt with some of that shit in my own life where it's everybody likes this thing and you want to like it. Like, up in Idaho, I don't really like wake surfing. I don't like doing shit behind the boat. I'd rather just be on the boat and watch everybody else do it.
Right. Booze cruise.
But I feel like shitty because I don't like it.
I don't feel shitty.
Yeah.
I just don't like it.
Yeah. And I think that's a great lesson. Like, just like whatever
and
feels
my whole
good
family,
to you.
like Anna, she is obsessed. That day that's the bluebird day with 12 inches of powder, she will be the first person there. And she's so frustrating for her. She's like, why are you not getting into this? I'm like, just stop. I'm not going to get into it. So
let it go.
Yeah. So I'll make it up. But if I'm here, man, I'll do, or if I'm, I'm working a ton and moving around a ton and traveling. So running is honestly the easiest. Like if you're on the road, I mean, you're not going to go try to find a gym. You know what? I hate hotel gyms. Fuck it. Just running shoes are easy to pack. You know, I'm obsessed with Google Earth. So I'll just look on Google Earth and just find where I need to go and knock it out.
And how's the other stuff? How's the nutrition and all that stuff?
No, it's not good either. Yeah, on the road, it's not. No part of being on the road is healthy. I mean, and I'm weird too. I have periods where I really care about that, and you know, if I'm going to care about it or focus on anything, it'd be plant based. I mean, I'll try to do 2/3 of the day plant based. Mm-hmm. But having lived like a monk for 20 years, 25 years, I mean, there's a whole part of me that's like, I mean, I'll just fully confess because I had this walking meeting this morning, and it was driving over here, and I was hungry. I was like, should I drive through McDonald's and get a breakfast sandwich? I didn't because I knew I was coming over here, but I would.
And what was waiting for you here?
Cinnamon rolls from your daughter, from Hope, your daughter.
Yeah, how good was that?
Well, really good. But no, I'm a kind of a seafood eater, which means if I see it, but it'll I'll get back on it. We'll see what we're full time in Aspen, so I think the move back to Austin is happening. So that'll be better.
You think you're going to be coming back here?
Yeah. I hope Anna doesn't listen to this show, but
okay, yeah,
she wants to stay there.
It's mostly for men.
We have, it's one of my daughters who's in high school up there is graduating, going to CU.
Oh, so she went there for her senior year.
She came for her senior year, and her twin sister.
How's that?
Oh, it's awesome. She's Grace Armstrong. They're both awesome, but Grace will, when I'm in diapers at 85 or 90, she'll be the one there helping out.
If you don't start working out better, you're going to be there at 75.
No way. There's no fucking way. 75 is nothing. I'm already at 50.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe 78.
No, that's not going to happen. But so she goes off to college, and so we'll see. I like Austin. I'm proud of the city.
What with just speaking about your kids, what has been your framework or whatever? I know your oldest, he's playing football at Rice still. Mm-hmm. Is that right?
Yep.
What's it like to parent as someone who's had the 7 jerseys, and like how do
Adam
you
didn't have them, maybe has them, who knows where they are?
Yeah.
Nobody came and claimed them.
There you go. Well, so what's it like though? For me, I played Division II hockey, so there's not a high bar necessarily to get over.
Right. Okay, it's a great question, and it's a slightly nuanced answer because I have two chunks of kids. Right?
Absolutely.
The 3 that lived through.
How's it changed over time? Maybe.
Yeah. Well, we'll get to that in a sec. So they lived through it. So that was real time. My little ones, who were 2 and 1, obviously had no idea. They had no idea. But in this era that we live in, everything is forever. Interviews are forever. Depositions I've given in lawsuits 15 years is forever. The Oprah special is forever, right? With YouTube and people's ability. I mean, it's right there. So my kids the younger ones are now growing into that, where it's in it. We had a thing a few years ago, and where some kid figured out who Max was and said, "Oh, your dad's the cheater." Imagine that pickup that day. And so, and they're kids, and it's probably one of the parents is like, that's fucking asshole, the cheat. So the kid says, "Your dad's a cheater, right?" And all that to say, like, that's stuff that I'll be dealing with for. It wasn't enough that I dealt with it with the older kids.
Understood.
Now the younger ones are going to grow into it, and I'll deal with it again. And so, but I've maintained the same policy. The same policy for the older is an open door policy. You have any questions, at any time, anywhere, any place you want to sit down and talk about what I did, anytime. And so that goes for the that goes for the little ones as well as they grow into it and as those comments get made. Now, to answer the second part of the question, it's changed, right? It's and not by design, as I mentioned a second ago. I mean, it's just changed. Like for our older kids, October 2012, probably not a lot of those kids thought it was too cool to be Luke Armstrong, or you're like, oh my God, what's that? But it's because I've been able to, and again, not by design, just been able to reemerge and play some offense. It sounds stupid, but it's kind of, it's kind of cool again, like in a weird way. Like it's not.
Yeah, it's a redemption story. Let's be honest.
For Luke, it's not. And the fact that he's in the sports management program at Rice, which is an amazing school. Sports management department is incredible. I mean, the fact that they are asking me to come speak to the entire class, Luke can be proud. I think, I know he's proud of that because he's like, hey, Dad, just before you say yes, just make sure we get 3 or 4 seats right in front.
That's awesome.
I'm like, you got it. I'm like, and I told him, I said, well, hang on a second. I'm not going to say that like on the first email.
Mm-hmm.
Like, let me get like 3 or 4 emails deep with this dude. And be like, hey, man, you think you got some seats for my son and his buddies right up front? Which, of course.
Right.
But, so stuff like that it's, they didn't ask me to do that in 2012.
Well, and I'm also, let me take it a step further. Being someone who's accomplished, let's talk about your athletic accomplishments. Mm-hmm. Okay. And so there can be this shadow cast. Mm-hmm. I look, Wayne Gretzky is one of our friends up in Idaho, and I see the way Wayne and Janet arguably is way more competitive than Wayne. And I just
heard the stories.
See the way that he, is with his kids and allows them that space. So how hard is it to remind them, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but like that they're their own.
Yeah.
Like what
my kids, I don't know how.
Or your accomplishments so fucking high up there that it's like not even a thing that they have to worry about. Do you know what I mean? It's not like a middling thing like, oh, fuck, my dad did this, so I got to try to...
I don't think they worry about it because I never put any pressure on them. My kid, and I'll just make it really simple. My kids were, all 5 of them were the last kids in their class to learn how to ride a bike. Right? I made that a point. Like, I am not going to be the guy out there going, get on the bike, come on, paddle, paddle, paddle. They were the last kids. And so, and I, all of them played sports. I would go to these, all sports, all games, and I'd watch these parents that were just so fucking just helicoptering.
They're still,
and I'm just, of course, I see it. Well, now my little guy's playing hockey. You talk about some crazy sports parents.
Oh, fuck.
These hockey parents, dude. I'm like, what is wrong with you? They are 10. These fucking refs. Yeah. I'm like, are you kidding me? Now, I mean, Luke, I think there's a time where it matters. Luke played here at Westlake High, O-lineman. They went to the state semifinals and got completely robbed. Like, they got totally robbed. Now, I was pissed about that. I wasn't jumping up and down and screaming. I was sad. I was devastated. Right. But it's like, let them, if my fucking kid wants to, well, he does. I mean, our little guy played the tuba.
Yeah.
No, not the tuba. He played the tuba, the big thing. I was thinking of the trombone. But he played the tuba. I was like, you know what? If you want to play the tuba, if you want to be a really good or not so good tuba player, I don't care. But, be into it. Be committed. Practice. If you're into it, then be into it. If you want to play hockey, and this is great. I mean, Max, he grew up here. He'd never ice skated his entire life. Last year's like, all these kids, I want to play hockey. I was like, you don't know how to ice skate. He's like, well, I now, figured they were holding his own. You know how it goes.
He's like a young Lance swimming in the 6-year-old lane.
End of the year, scoring goals.
Fuck, dude.
So, I mean, I see stuff like that. Like, that makes me cry. Watching, or getting mad at an ump or what. I'm like, it's just people really like, and it's not good for kids.
No.
You see amazing talents, amazing athletes, young athletes that just tap. They're like, fuck this, man. The pressure from my own parents, moms and dads, is just too great. Like I'm out. And so I've just always been like, hey, whatever, man, whatever you want to do. They got to study. They got to get good grades, which fortunately they all do. But there's absolutely no pressure. Whether, forget whatever I did or didn't do, but just even if I wasn't a professional athlete, I think I'd be the same way. I think I'd let them be their own person.
That's awesome. I don't think there's enough, as you know, like you any kind of place where there's youth sports, it's really challenging. I mean, I have to sit by myself because all the parents or most of the parents are so, I don't know if they're living through their kids or there's just some disconnect about why the kid's actually playing. Yeah. And it's hard, I
mean, we had he's just basketball season just started up there in Aspen. This was a grade older than him. His parents, it was Aspen versus Basalt, which is the next town down valley. They got in a fight. Parents. I'm like, I wasn't there, but I'm just like, are you kidding? Like they're 10 years old. We're going to get in a fight. This is so lame.
No, it is.
But dude, it's real.
It is. All right. I know you got to roll. I got one last question I wanted to ask you. And it reminds me of something that someone who's been on your podcast, Jesse Itzler, who I think is awesome. I love his message, the way he has obviously.
You talk about real. I mean, that he is one of the
right.
Yeah, Jesse Itzler should be president. By the way, his wife is. His wife is.
Yes, she's done a few things too.
She's a complete badass.
Well,
I mean, what a power couple.
One of the things that he said, many things that have resonated, but one of the things that's always stuck with me is he doesn't care about marquee jet. He doesn't care about whatever he's done in the past. It's in the past. Like the bus is going to roll on, and so I think having that mentality really allows for an openness to create and succeed in whatever it looks like. And so I wonder if that, here again, in your closet are 7, right? Yellow jerseys. What does it feel like as you're going towards, this new, with next ventures and whatever else you're doing? Is it hard not to measure it against that because you were the top of the heap? Or is it, I've moved on from that. I don't care about that anymore. I'm taking the lessons that got me there and applying them going forward.
That was have a great, actually, speaking of Ed Richey, I have an amazing piece of his, and his work is very typical. You'll know an Ed piece. It's very font based and just kind of witty, but this piece, anyways, it's that was then, this is now. So, if you were to go to my house today, I mean, the 7 jerseys, when I had other houses with more wall space, that would be the only thing in that house. You go into some athletes' houses, and if this was, I don't know, he'd have all his, MVP and, blah, 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 all his stuff everywhere, photos throughout the house. If you walked into my home, you would never, if nobody said anything, like if you were looking at it to buy it and said, this is John Doe's, they'd be like, okay. You would not one thing on the walls.
They were literally in the closet.
Well, the jerseys are now in the closet because we don't have enough. I would, if I had a different sized wall, which hopefully when we move back to Austin, that'll happen. I would put those back up, but there wouldn't be the 1996 Flesh Wallone. There wouldn't be the stage win from 1995. 7 yellows, put them back in a back room or whatever, but that's it. Like, don't have it all over the place. And I know a bunch of guys, man, they got the shit everywhere. I'm like, well,
it's hard to let it go I think that's a great lesson when you're surrounded
that's a huge
by
mistake.
You walk into that,
huge
and it's
mistake.
It's
that is not going to serve you. You're living in the past. That isn't going to help me. Certainly not going to help me. And so that was then. This is now, man. And having said that, if I can complete this, sort of this project that I'm on of this flywheel, and I mean, I don't take it lightly that I've taken $75 million of other people's money. I mean,
it's a whole new ballgame for you.
I mean, I'm the biggest. My partner and I are the two biggest investors, but still,
I was going to ask you that. That's great. That's great to hear.
We're currently the two biggest. We have no big chunks, no institutional money, no et cetera, et cetera. So, but that is I take that very seriously. And so, if I can ultimately make that call and say, hey, this fund, did 10 or 15 or 20x, and here's your money back, buddy, it'll make 7 Yellows look like peewee. I mean, it will mean so much more to me. A, that they trusted me with their hard-earned money. B, that I was able to just somehow get back into the world and play offense again, and to see make it happen, like do the job and return people's capital. Fucking, well, then I'll have to go raise the second fund. So you can't drop the mic. You got to go raise another fund.
But I love that. I think that's kind of a great life lesson. I think a lot of us spend our early years up into the 40s with, this certain type of mission. A lot of times for people, it's money driven, right? It's achievement driven. Mm-hmm. And we hit this midlife and we look around, we've kind of accomplished enough. It's like, well, what am I really here to do? Like, what is purposeful to me? And to hear you speak about this new venture, pardon the pun, but it's really...
But even on the content side, like you've felt it. You've done, this is your 11th or 12th show. You'll have a show. I have shows where I get up and I'm like just electric. Just like, holy, did that just, when you get a show like that, that's just magic.
Well, it's creating a new framework for what success looks like. I think that's a big thing for me, that as I've stepped into this space and kind of let go of some of my past, it's like, what does success look like? And it's a completely different framework than dollars and cents.
Yeah.
That would be cool if that came along with it, but it doesn't have to.
Right.
With you, arguably it kind of does.
Yeah. No, I mean,
just the nature of the business, but
that's not the most important part is being responsible stewards of other people's money and giving them back, some multiple of that, and saying, thanks for trusting me. And yes, we will make money along the way in that process, but I mean, that just, who would have saw that come? I didn't see that coming.
No. And it's because why? It's because you back in 2017 or before that when you started.
Before that.
Yeah.
That's when I just started pedaling more.
Yeah. But it's, again, listen to your intuition, folks.
Thank God I got hurt running.
Like, it's these things. No, for real. We don't think about these things, and they fucking set us up for this.
Yeah. It just fell in my lap.
Yeah, man. So anyway, listen, I know you got to roll.
Yep.
Thanks so much for coming.
I got to go raise money. I got another lunch meeting to
pound the pavement.
Yeah, say the same thing 5 times a day. It's so inspiring.
All right, love you, brother.
Thanks, bro.